Founding in the Indian Nation, the cowboy's life was my occupation, and the Oklahoma hills where I was born.
Good morning. Welcome to The Way It Was. Today is our guest is a local resident whom most of you know is Carl Cumpton. Carl, welcome to The Way It Was.
Thank you, Corrina.
We're glad to have you. With your busy schedule, it's hard to catch up with you, to get you on our show and to share your life, because you were born here in Wilson.
No,
No, you were almost, I guess, because your family.
I was 6 months old
Oh, were you?
when I came to Wilson.
Where were you born?
Tallahassee.
Really? Okay. Now you're Carl Cumpton Jr.
Right.
So your parents were.
My parents was Carl, actually Mosley Cumpton. I really wasn't a junior, but our middle initials are the same. And Jill Cumpton.
Now what was Jules, your mother's maiden name?
Jacobs.
Jacobs. And her parents, where was she from?
They were both from Arkansas.
Really?
And they're both from Aldous, which is about 40 miles east of Fort Smith.
Oh, really? There's an Altus, Arkansas.
Right.
Well, I didn't know that.
That's in wine country down there.
Where they raise all those grapes.
Yeah, two wineries there.
Really? Well, did your dad? How did they get to Oklahoma?
Dad's health was bad at the time, and they told him that he needed to get inside. He was on a post route. He's postmaster, well, not postmaster, postman on a route, and.
And in those days, the weather was bad, and the weather had to, a mail had to go through.
Those old horses didn't.
That's right.
He was on his on a route at Aldous. So he and his brother put in a drugstore in Tallahassee, and they went to Tallahassee, and I was born while he was in Tallahassee. But then he didn't like the inside work. And while he's in Tallahassee, and the end of the old Oklahoma pipeline was laying a pipeline across the mountains, and he went to work for them.
Oklahoma Pipeline.
Oklahoma Pipeline.
And that's how he ended up in this area.
Yeah, he also played when he was in Arkansas. He played minor league baseball.
Oh, really?
He was a catcher for Little Rock. I believe it was Little Rock, what did they call that team? It's still they still have a team now, but
really,
yeah, but it's in Little Rock. And he went to start working for Interstate when they laid the pipe, Oklahoma pipeline. When they got the pipeline across the mountains, he was transferred to Boca Chica. And he's over there just a short time. Now, I was born while he was at Tallahassee, a month or two, and then he was transferred to Wilson. And while he was transferred to Wilson, the Oklahoma Pipeline had a baseball team.
Oh, really?
Baseball was big back in those days. All the oil companies had ball.
Now, what years were these?
1924 and 25, and then through there they had a big.
Yeah, baseball was a big thing, because I know I remember hearing my dad and different ones talk about it.
We had a great big stadium here with bleachers and covered bleachers.
Really? Where was it located?
Almost where the school is. It's about where the old high school is down there now.
Really?
And they played baseball when they wasn't working. Everybody was playing baseball in the summertime. And that's how come we ended up in Wilson.
Uh-huh.
And those ball teams, these oil companies, they would get out and hire men that could play baseball.
Really?
Carter Oil Company had one, and Gypsy, and all of them. They all had.
Well, the Oklahoma Pipeline changed the name.
Yes, in World War II, they changed to Interstate Oil Pipeline, and they stayed at Interstate. It changed over about 3 times, actually. That was just a name change only, because it's still owned by Standard Oil in New Jersey. And
Just confusing the people.
right, tax purposes probably.
Yes.
That was changed, but then City Service and Conoco bought the pipeline, bought all the transportation system in Oklahoma, and City Service took over the operation. And then
Now, City Service was what was here south of the old ice plant.
right.
Okay. Well, Carl, you mentioned, before we go on any further with this, you mentioned your grandparents. Now, they lived in Arkansas also?
Right.
Okay. You brought a picture to share that is over 100 years old of your grandparents' home place, where your mother was born. Let's share that. Oh, yes, there it is.
That's my grandmother, great-grandmother out there in front of that house.
Right by the porch. No, it's by a shrubbery or tree.
Tree right there.
On the left. Well, and this is this where your mother was born?
Yes.
That's your mother's mother.
That's right.
And she was Mrs. Jacobs.
Right.
Okay. Then while we're that, let's change. You brought a picture of your grandparents and the household, your mother's brothers.
Right. All the Jacobs family.
Okay. And we will, yes.
My grandfather was a doctor.
And is that him in the center, right where that
Right.
crease is?
Right. And that's my grandmother. Where the crease is my grandmother in the one time.
Oh, okay.
And no, I'll take it. Yeah, that's my grandmother. My great-grandmother is on the end over here.
On the right.
Yeah, right. And my mother's on the far end over there.
On the left, in the white dress.
The little white dress.
Long hair.
And that's two uncles and two aunts.
And then there was their housekeeper was on farther to the right, and then that's her boyfriend.
This is not the picture, though.
Oh, that's not the picture?
No, the next picture is I think the one that has the...
Well, I know, and you brought one also of just your mother's family that showed them.
Right,
Yes, this
yeah.
is just your mother's family. That's your mother on the right with the little tall girl with the long hair.
Right. I guess you were right, Corrina. That was...
The household help was on the far end on the other picture, yeah.
Right.
But we didn't pick it up. But that's a good picture. And your mother was, about 9 or 10, 11?
She was probably 9, I think she was 9 years old when that was taken. She was 92 when she died.
And she lived after y'all came to Wilson, Carl. Did they remain here, or did they move around a lot? Did he remain here in Wilson?
Just in this area, we moved a little bit. We went to Graham for a short time, and that's where I started school.
Because back then you didn't drive to your job like now, because the roads were too rough,
Right.
and everybody didn't have vehicle or transportation.
It took you a half day to get to Ardmore.
That's right. When you said going to Ardmore, that was a big trip, wasn't it?
It made the papers.
Yes, even motoring to Hilton.
Right.
Well, I can remember, even that, boy, it was a big deal if anyone went to Ardmore. You really were important if you had a trip to Ardmore.
We've been doing the research on the history, and we have all these, we've got all these old Wilson posts. And in that, it's really fun just to read where people voted to, Yeah, if you went to Wrangling or Healdon, it made the paper.
Yes, I've seen that.
And if you went to Ardmore, you
had really gone somewhere. Well, was your dad in Scouts?
Yes, he was. He's my scoutmaster.
Really?
Yeah.
So goodness.
43.
Really? Well, Carl, your dad, and then you, and then your son, and then your grandsons. 4 generations of scouting.
There's 3 generations of Eagles.
Oh, that's great.
I was an Eagle, and both sons, and all my grandsons are Eagles.
Oh, that's
3
great.
of them.
It's a shame that the girls can't be. I'm sure if it can be changed, some of your family will change it. But what does the granddaughter think about not getting to be an Eagle?
She hadn't yet that old yet.
She hasn't thought about that.
Maybe she'll go to Girl Scouts and get their highest award.
Yes. I'm sure she will. Well, there was an instance that Louis Gandy, your late brother-in-law, told at his and Regina's, was it 60th wedding anniversary last summer, and said that, you had always loved scouting. In fact, to come in for their 60th wedding anniversary celebration, you had to leave Camp Simpson and rush in and then rush back because you had some boys down there. But said that you got upset because Regina's wedding was on the day that you were to go to Camp Simpson.
No, it's Camp Chapman then.
Oh, Camp Chapman.
Yeah, up in the Arbuckles. And that was my first year to go to camp. I was 12 years old, and I couldn't wait. I didn't want to stay for that wedding. I wanted to get on up there, but they made me stay. And by the time they said I do, I had my scout uniform on and was ready to go.
That's what she said. You were gone. That they enjoyed relating that, how the scouting had always been, they thought, almost your first love. They didn't know how Anna fit in around that. Well, when you came along, now did you attend most of your school years here at Wilson?
I went from the first grade through and part of my freshman year in Wilson. That time the Depression was on and the oil field was shutting down, and Dad was transferred to Illinois. And we were up there 3 years. My dad was. I was up there a little longer than 3 years because as soon as the oil field picked up back here, he transferred back to Wilson. Mm-hmm. And I liked a year completing school, so I stayed up there and completed my senior year in high school in Cumpton, Illinois.
But 1st through 9th was here in Wilson.
Right.
And that's where you went to school with Chuck Heath. But didn't Chuck Heath's father be transferred to Illinois
too? He was up there with me.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, we were up there together.
So that's why y'all are still such close friends. You were here in Wilson together, but then in Illinois together.
Yeah, about half of Wilson was in that area in Illinois. They just moved, family after family.
Well, now, did John Harrell work with y'all for the same company?
Yeah, John, he was with the Carter Oil Company, and they were up there too.
Well, I remembered because I remember Mrs. Harrell and John telling, they were customers of ours and telling how they had been in Illinois, and y'all used to visit at the office.
Right. We had a lot of Oklahoma people there.
Well, what were some of the other people? Chuck Strawn, didn't Chuck Strawn work, did he work for y'all?
I don't remember him. There was the Carries and the Cavings and the Mills and just to name a few. The street that we lived on, Cowden, they changed it to Oklahoma Avenue because there wasn't but 2 or 3 natives living on that street.
They changed it to Oklahoma Avenue. Wonder if it's still named that?
I expect it is.
Well, that's deep. Well, how did you meet Miss Anna Clark?
Well, I don't really know.
Now, she's told me a tale about...
Well, I'll tell you how we started going together.
Okay.
I was still in service and came home on furlough, and Aubrey Barrett and
Rita
Reesa. He had a date with Rita, and he wanted me to get a date. He was going to double date. And so Juanita was more my age,
Anna's sister.
Yeah, Anna's older sister.
Yeah, Juanita always lets everybody think Anna's oldest.
And so I said, well, Aubrey said, why don't you go out and talk to Juanita? So they lived on the farm, out
east of Wilson.
Southeast of Wilson, and I said, okay, we'll go see if Juanita'd like to go. We were going to Ardmore to the show. And, when I got out there, and Anna came to the door and got talking to her, and I ended up asking Anna instead of Juanita. Anna was pretty young when I left service. There's about 4 or 5 years difference in our ages.
She'd grown up while you were gone.
She'd grown up when I was gone.
And I'm sure she had that long, beautiful hair back then.
Oh, yes.
And wore it down.
Right.
She's always had beautiful hair.
She had, and a short time afterwards, I went back to, of course, I was still in the military. And we corresponded all the time, and on that leave while we were together every night. And we we come back, and in a short time, I asked her to marry me, and she said she didn't know any better, so she's young.
Poor girl didn't know what she was getting. She didn't know that she was going to be a scouter all these years.
Well, she had an idea, because I was scoutmaster right after I came back.
Oh, really?
And I'd have campouts out there on the Clark farm, so I could be close to Anna.
Boy, that was good thinking, Carl.
And I could slip in and have Miss Clark's biscuits and gravy every morning.
Boy, that was good thinking. Well, you have two sons,
Right.
Larry and Jim,
Right.
and then you have how many grandchildren?
4.
4. Well, Carl, you have been involved in, I guess, everything that has been beneficial to the city of Wilson. In your quiet manner, working behind the scenes, you have helped to smooth relations and communications in all the business people and all the civic leaders. I know you have been greatly involved in Rotary ever since you've been here. Was your dad in Rotary?
No, Dad never did join Rotary.
He didn't have time the way he worked.
Yeah,
No.
right.
And you didn't really until after you retired.
I was an honorary member for years, because on account of the Rotary had scout troop. And
But you never were able to be in
well,
town with your
when
job.
I went, but that wasn't 2 or 3 times a month. Couple of times a month, I'd say. I probably went to Rotary.
Well, I know that you have been involved. Let me see. You served as mayor.
Right, 10 years.
10 years as mayor, and then did you ever serve as councilman?
Yeah.
You served as councilman. I was trying to remember. So much has happened, and remember that time the bus broke down in Mississippi, and you called my husband Carl and said, Carl, we'd like for you to go down and get the bus, and I'll tell you what, take Corrina and I'll take Anna, and we'll go down there. You remember when Anna and I got to looking, and we were fooling around in this Stuckey's, I believe, and we found some candy, and we were fooling around, and y'all had gone all across the Mississippi River after we got the bus repaired, and after Carl had worked on the bus and got it repaired. And then here we were just fooling around and coming back, and y'all had turned around and came all the way back to find us, thinking we had had car trouble. What years was that?
Oh, let's see. I don't have...
in the late 60s, I guess, or 70.
For 15 years, Corrina, and your sons all participated in this. We had tours all over
the United States.
Yeah, if they'd stay 4 years, they could see the entire United States. And we'd take them on 3-week tours every summer.
And the National Jamboree was in Idaho?
Yeah, we made all the jamborees.
And then one was in Washington, D.C. I know that I think Farron went on 2 or 3 trips with you.
Yeah. Well, Farron one night, we were in New York City, and we were going to the World's
Maybe
Fair.
I haven't heard this.
And we were all on the top of the Empire State Building. I took them up there to watch the lights come on in New York. And Farron was standing there next to me. He says, "Pinch me." He says, "I can't." I said, "Why, Farron?" He says, "I can't believe that I'm standing here on the entire Empire State Building watching the lights come on in New York City."
I can imagine. He was, he loved scouting, and he joined the Navy, but he came back to get his Eagle Scout. And thanks to you for working with him, because, he thought he was too old, but you went ahead and worked with him. And thanks to you, he became an Eagle Scout. And would you believe now that he's really involved in the scouting?
Yeah.
And he has 3 little boys that he's working with that. And I think his wife is a den mother. So
Scouting is a great program. There's no question about that.
It is.
Every kid keep being a scout.
Isn't it? And, Carl, you've also you received the highest honor, I think, that the Methodist Church ever gives. You have all of your life. Your parents were active in the Methodist Church, and then you've been active in the Methodist Church all your life. What was the award?
It's a God Service Award. It's a national award for working with youth. I have 2 from the Methodist Church. Actually, I have one from the conference, which is Cross and Flame Award,
Mhm.
and then I have the National Award.
Well, Carl, you know, it is such an honor. You've also been involved in politics. I know, I know. Used to, you know, we were all diehard Democrats, you know, and then it got to where we had to follow the man or the person. I know that you and Wes Watkins have been close friends through the years. And remember when we'd go to all the Democratic precinct meetings and Wes was in the lumberyard, you know, in Ada, and his wife was school teacher, I think. And a lot of water's run under the bridge since then. And Al Sadler had those little campaign buttons that had a little felt owl with a little piece of tree limb stuck on it, you know, for vote for Al, reminding people that you could remember his name if you saw the little hoot owl.
Yeah.
But in all of this, I guess you've been involved with the Senior Citizen Center. You've been involved with, I know, we took the trip, and you and Ann and Carl and I went up and looked for the first bus, to pick out the first bus for the senior citizen. We were also worked together, remember when we went to the Capitol, and was it Governor Hall that was up there when we took the bus and Turner Point Extra and all? We went up there.
Two Gold Scouts.
Yes, and but then when we went up to present our case for the bridge, that was in the 60s, for the Red River Bridge. And so you have been, as I said, anything in southern Oklahoma that would try to promote industry, economic improvements and all, that would benefit not only you and your family, you were never selfish in any of it, that would benefit the entire population of southern Oklahoma, you have been involved in. And I've never heard, you have always worked honestly with the youth. You've always treated all youth with such respect. What advice could, I know now you're even involved with this Explorer drill team.
Right.
That for little 7th and 8th grade boys with the Wilson schools. And you get so excited. That day I came down and you were so excited you were out there almost marching with them as Claude Burris and Shannon Roberts were involved with them. What advice would you give to our students and to the young people? I know you witnessed the little Caleb Hacker talking to the Rotary and how he had gotten discouraged and because of grades or something, and dropped out of school. But then he got in the Thunderbird program for a youth, troubled youth, or youth where there could be problems ahead, serious problems ahead, and now he's graduated with honors after some boot training.
Right.
What advice could you give to our young people?
Well, self-esteem, I think, is the biggest problem with most of our young people. They don't, and they don't have any, well, home environment too. They're mostly from broken homes. When I was a kid, all of our kids had two parents. The family has broken down.
Don't you think it makes a big difference in Mama being home when the kids come home from school, or at night, Mama being there?
Right. When I was growing up, my mother was full-time mother, and we had hot meals and 3 a day, and they were right there with us. They went everywhere, did what we wanted to do, or not all the time, but the biggest part of the time they was right with us. And I tried to do this with my kids. I tried to be with them and guide them and back them, and both of them so far has turned out pretty good.
Well, also, Carl, we were taught love for God, love for our country, love for our fellow man, respect for the other person.
Right.
And in that, we had respect for ourselves.
Right.
Because
that's the first thing you got to do. You have to respect yourself.
Yes. And so when God being at the basis of all of it, the foundation, gave you the strength, and then Mama being home gave the strength to go on, that produced all of these outstanding fine citizens, that we have to have all of these fine citizens working now with our youth, since the economic situation is where that it takes Mom and Daddy and all the older kids working to make a living.
You got to give them yourself too.
You have to give.
Right.
In order to receive that joy and love and peace, you have to give of yourself.
Right.
And you can never outgive.
That's right. You're not going to give the Lord in any way.
Carl, it's been great having you on our show today. We could go on and on. There's so many things that I didn't even touch that Carl has worked with and promoted and helped in our community. If anyone wants anything done, they say contact a busy person. And that's what, when anyone wanted anything done and knew that it would be done, that here in Wilson, they contacted Carl Cumpton. Remember,